everyone. October the 10th is the World Day Against the Death Penalty. It's a day to advocate for the abolition of the death penalty and to raise awareness of the conditions and circumstances which affect prisoners on the death row. Now, at the end of 2019, 106 countries, a majority of the world states, had abolished the death penalty in law for all crimes. 142 countries, that's two-thirds, had abolished the death penalty in law or practice. Unfortunately, 55 countries retain capital punishment. Now, China is at the top of the execution list. It's estimated that 2,000 executions took place in China last year. In my country, Iran, according to a report published by Iran Human Rights, 280 people were executed. Well, according to official figures, only 30% of that number was announced by officials. Now, one of those executions was that of Iranian wrestling champion Navid Afghani. That happened not very long ago. He was convicted of stabbing to death a security guard during anti-government protests in 2018, despite there not being one shred of evidence linking him to that death. Now, I decided to talk to a person who has first-hand experience on the death row. Anthony Graves was convicted in 1994 of assisting Robert Carter, a man he barely knew, in the brutal murder of 6 people, 2 women and 4 children. The state of Texas incarcerated him for nearly 2 decades, and they almost executed him twice for murders he did not commit. Despite everything that happened, Anthony Graves remains very positive today, and he's now a fierce advocate for prison reform. I'd like to thank you, Anthony, for joining me today. And if you don't mind, I'd like you to start off by giving us a little background information on yourself, where you grew up, how you were raised, what kind of family you were raised in before this terrible ordeal took place.
Wow. Growing up, I grew up in a small town here in Texas called Brenham. I am the oldest of 5 children. My mother and father were divorced, and my mother ended up being a single parent. And so I played the big brother role / father role with my other siblings. I love sports. I played baseball and all of those things. I was really good at them. I just had a carefree life. I was young. I was invincible. I mean, I was a people's person. I had a lot of great friends. I had family that loved me. I was an ordinary guy. I wasn't involved with the criminal justice system at all. I was just one of those young black men who was able to live carefree because I had a mother and I had aunties and siblings that loved me. And so that's encouraging when you're living in this world. You have love. I was I worked. I was working as a machinist before this happened to me. Uh, as I say, I was living a normal life. And then one day, a knock came to my door and it changed my whole world.
What can you tell us about the crime you were accused of?
It was a crime that happened in a small town in Texas. An entire family was murdered, 4 children, a teenage daughter and a grandmother. They were shot, stabbed, bludgeoned to death. House was set on fire in an attempt, I guess, to cover up evidence. And it was an outrage. It was a very horrible, horrible crime. But I didn't know anything about it. And at that time, they had turned around and arrested a young man, Mr. Carter, who had a child that was a part of that who was murdered in their home, right? But because when they seen him at the funeral, he had burns on him, had gauze from burns, and he became a person of interest. They asked him if they could talk to him. To make a long story short, they took him to the DPS office where they interrogated him over 14 hours. And then he ended up lying and said that I was involved in the crime with him. And he didn't even know who I was. He just knew my name. because he didn't think he could do this crime by himself, and that they knew someone else had to be involved, and they just wanted the name of that person, and they would let him go. So he decided that because he had thought he had seen me in a vehicle before on his way to the DPS office, he decided to call my name because he thought he had just seen me in the vehicle, which it wasn't even me. And that's how he ended up calling my name, simply because he thought he had just seen me.
And they have other evidence against you?
No other
or was
evidence.
It just the testimony
That
of
was
you?
it. That was it. And then after that, after he initially lied, he goes back on the same night while he's in custody to try to tell them the truth, to try to tell them that this man didn't have nothing to do with this. I don't even know him. But they didn't listen to him. What they did is they went and arrested his wife and charged her with capital murder. And then 2 months afterwards, they let her go and told him that if he didn't continue to tell the story on me, they would go back after his wife because there was no statute of limitation on the case. So the young man decided that he would continue to lie on me to protect his wife. And I ended up being sentenced to death for a crime I knew absolutely nothing about.
How did it feel to be convicted as an innocent man? Where did you find the strength to actually fight back? And were you given a fair trial?
It was hard because I had been in my naive state believing that the system would work. I just needed to get trial. I had stayed in jail 2.5 years waiting on trial, begging them to take me to trial so that the truth could come out and I could go home. But I was naive to believe that that's the way the system worked. The system works to convict, not to exonerate. And so because of that, I ended up being convicted and sentenced. And it was horrible because my mother was there, my children were there, and we were all waiting on a victory so we can go home. And they had to witness this injustice. Well, they sentenced me to death for a crime I did not commit. But I think the thing that saved me in terms of staying sane was my naivety. I was just too naive to believe that they could do this to me for something I didn't do. So I held on to that. I held on to the fact that I was innocent and that you just couldn't kill me for something I didn't do. Now, had I known different, I probably would have went crazy. But because I just knew.
Did you have a fair trial? Did you have
No,
access?
I didn't. Anytime a innocent man is wrongfully convicted, there's no fair trial. Okay, something had to happen for that conviction to occur. There was no fair trial. That was only thing that they brought against me was the man that lied on me, who had told them that he lied, and that's how I got convicted. So my life as a young black man didn't matter enough to the criminal justice system that evidence had to prove that I had done something. They just because I was a young black man, I was convicted for a crime that someone said I participated in, even though I had alibi witnesses that knew where I was still convicted and sentenced to death. And it was like an out of body experience because I never thought I'm not a bad guy. You know, I have friends, family. I mean, I play sports. I'm not a bad guy. But now I'm convicted and facing the death penalty. You know, I was at home with my family asleep. A crime happened in a town I don't even go to. And someone just called my name and that's all it took for you to take my freedom. And now you're trying to take my life. It was mind blowing that for me to see, you hear stories, but you think, they're outliers or somebody's lying, but you don't think those things that happen to you. And to wake up on death row for a crime I didn't know anything about.
Oh my God, thinking about that.
It was so crazy to me. I had to live 18 and a half years in prison for something I don't even know anything about. So I don't even know how to put it in perspective. All I know is that I've been wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death and they're trying to kill me. It was crazy. It was a crazy, crazy thing. My emotions was all over the place. My mother, my children had to witness this, and I had to figure out some kind of way to keep my head up and keep fighting. It was very hard.
Anthony, how did you find the strength to do all this, to keep your sanity amidst everything that was going on?
Naivete. Naivete saved my life. I was just too naive to believe that they could kill me for something I didn't do. I just felt like justice would prevail at some point. It had to, because I'm innocent. So I held on to that. And that not only saved my life, but it saved my sanity. Because had I known that justice prevailed crazy way before I come home, So it was just naivete that allowed me to stay sane and that allowed me to continue to fight. And I would always tell people, when someone call you naive, it's not a bad thing because it saved my life. Had I really understood what was going on around me, I don't think I'd be sane today. I witnessed over 415 men that they killed around me while I was down there in 12 and a half years on death row. Okay. I witnessed 415 men that I knew. I watched them from the age of 17 up to 32, and now they're being executed. And it was just mind blowing. It's mind blowing that we're just killing people. Just killing people like life don't matter. I didn't understand that. And so I knew that I had to come out and stand against that because it's not right. I was innocent. I shouldn't have to have gone through that. And you tried to kill me twice while I was there. So I knew I had to come out and I had to be a voice for change that will give us a better system. The death penalty doesn't work because all decisions are made by men and we make mistakes. And it's if we kill one innocent person, that's too many. That's a failure. That's life that we have taken unjustly. The death penalty cannot work when one man and the other man say he's still sentenced to death. How are we able to be comfortable with that? How are we able to be comfortable when we watch a mother cry as she watches them stick a needle in her child's arm and she knows he's innocent and watch the life just comes right out of him in front of her. And she has to live the rest of her life with that. And she's done nothing wrong. I mean, it's crazy. There's no justice. Okay? You're not executing one person. You're executing an entire family, loved one. I watched my mother struggle with this for so many years because she knows her son is innocent. She knows her son is a loving son, but yet the state is going to murder him for something he didn't do. And she struggled with that.
How did it affect the community, Anthony? Because I know that you had an alibi. Family members knew you were there with them, and so they knew you didn't do this. But how? What about the community? What about your
the community
neighbors?
is scared to get involved. The community have seen a big machine just run over us for so many years called the criminal justice system. We just feel helpless and hopeless. So when it happened, people cheered for me on the sideline, but they was afraid to get involved because it could happen to them. Okay, so the community felt bad for me, but they didn't feel like there was nothing they could do because the machine of justice have ran over us all of our lives, especially as Black people in this country. So we didn't feel like, my community didn't feel like it could go up against this big giant. So they just prayed and they just cheered for me from the sidelines. People are afraid to get involved at times because they think that there's a repercussion to that. I was disappointed that the community at large didn't get involved. I'm an innocent young man. It's not just my community that is affected. It's affecting us as a whole people because if one innocent man is executed, that's blood on all of our hands because we could have all stood up for him and we didn't. Not just my community, but the community at large. It took me to reach out to people over in other countries to get involved in my case. In Europe, in Germany, in Switzerland, in Norway, in Sweden, in China. These people heard about my case, became outraged, came together, and started making noise that was loud enough that it came to the shores of America. And that's how I got people over here involved. But I had been in their backyard for a long time, and they wasn't involved because they was afraid. It's like, what do we do? How do we defeat that? I mean, this system has been killing us and running over us for years. So how do we help? They were afraid to get involved because our communities have been oppressed for so long that it's hard to be encouraged to get involved in something like that when it could come back on you. I was at home with my family, and now I'm headed to death row for a crime I knew absolutely nothing about. And if the next person to get involved felt like that could happen to them, it was that simple. So my community was afraid to get involved.
I want to know whether you managed to find it in your heart to forgive the prosecutors for what they did to you. 2 decades of your life, almost 2 decades of your life. You know, it's a very long time. You didn't see your children growing up, and you missed out on so much in life. Did you ever manage to forgive them?
I forgave them, but I forgave them for me, not for them. I needed to forgive so that I could continue to live my life. Because if I didn't forgive, this would eat me up on the inside. This would cause me to hate. This would cause me to be a person that I'm not. So I had to forgive just so I could be who I am. And I forgave. I haven't forgotten. That's why I continue to get out here and fight for other people. This is why I can continue to share my story so that you can know and understand what's going on in our criminal justice system, that the death penalty doesn't work. But I had to forgive. I had to forgive them for me. I wanted to live. I never wanted to die. But if I didn't forgive, I would die on the inside because they had taken so much from me. So I knew I needed to forgive. I did not want to be a mad person in society. I did not want to be a broken person in society. And all that was based upon forgiveness. I forgave and took my life back. And now I live a life that has given me a platform to share my story that help other people.
Anthony, I'd like you to tell us about your foundation and your work. What do you do now? What has become your passion, and what are you trying to achieve?
Yes, I have the Anthony Graves Foundation.org. And what we do is we fight for people who are innocent in prison here in the United States. We are a nonprofit, so the only way we do our work is on donations, but we help innocent people. The last person that got off of death row behind me, it was because I helped him. I went and got the information that was needed to show that he was innocent, named after Dwayne Brown. And so he's out now because of my foundation and the work that we're doing. But I have to say, I can only do that work when good people donate to it. And so there were good people that donated to the work that allowed me the resources to help this young man. And now he's home today. So yeah, my foundation, what it does is it helps people who've been wrongfully convicted. And also we have another program that teaches people how to share their stories, who's been involved in the criminal justice system, like I'm doing today, because I think stories are very powerful. I learned that by sharing my story around the country. I travel around this country and share my story and witness how powerful it is, how people respond to it. And I got to thinking, well, if other people learn how to tell their story this powerfully, maybe we can make some real change. So I started a program called the Smart Justice Speakers Bureau and Training Program, where I'm training juvenile and I'm training grown men who's been in touch with the criminal justice system, how to share their story. So that's what my foundation does. But it can't do no work without the generosity of the community donating for that work.
How important is it for people like yourself to have their voices heard, to speak out, to share their experience, to talk about capital punishment, to advocate against it? How important is it? And also, if you can you tell us about the importance of activism in general?
It's very important. It's very important. This is how you take your life back, okay? Because you didn't go through this for nothing. You went through this to learn about the injustice of the criminal justice system. And we need that story to be shared so that people can understand why we need to make the change that we need to change. So I think it's so very important for me to be out here and others to be out here, because we are the stories. We are the experience. You do not have to read a book. You do not have at a movie. Listen to me. I'm the story. I am the experience. I can tell you exactly what happened. I can tell you why we need to change the system. I can tell you why we need to be more humane toward each other. I can tell you all those things based on my experience with that criminal justice system. And I think that whoever goes through that and come out on this side, they should want to get involved. But when they don't want to get involved, I can't blame them because I know the hell that they've gone through. A lot of people come out and they just can't do it. They don't want to have nothing to do with it. And I can understand that. I wish they wouldn't feel that way because the more of us, much more of a difference we can make. But for those who choose not to be involved, I can only say, God bless you because I know what you went through. I know how hard it was. And you probably just won't have nothing to do with this. But for me, this gave me my life back to come out here and share my story and to help other people. It made it worth something. Okay, because for so many years, it didn't seem worth anything. Why are you just trying to waste my life? Why are you reducing my life to an irrelevancy when I'm more than this? And so I'm out proving that I'm more than that. Okay, I'm out here. I'm a human being. I have character. I have all the traits that you have. And I can make a difference. I can contribute to society. I was contributing to society. So I just wanted my place back. And my place is as a contributor. And so when I got out, I knew that I had a powerful story that could make a difference. And I wanted to use it in the best way for that. And so I would encourage anyone that has a story that relates to the criminal justice system. Whether it's you've been on death row, whether it's anything about your family, who had to deal with it while you were on death row. Those are all stories that need to be shared. My mother has a story. No one's seen her crying when she was thinking about her son, when they was talking about murdering her son. Nobody's seen the struggle she had to go through, how she had to continue to lift her head up in a community that looked at her and said, your son is a murderer. That's what they put on your family. So I needed to come out. And I needed to let the world know that my mother raised a loving, caring son. My mother raised a great son who has something to offer to the world. This is for my mother. This is for my children. And this is for those that I left behind. We are human beings. And you need to understand that so that we can figure out how can we render justice without murdering people and calling it justice. We don't need a death penalty. Some guys would prefer death penalty over life sentence because when you get a life sentence, that means that you're there for the rest of your life. You have no way of coming home. On the death row, at least you have an appeal to fight. What I'm just saying is that we are all loving, caring human beings. We all have those traits. Person make a mistake for 5 minutes of their life, and you're talking about killing them. Well, what mistake did you make in your life? And why didn't someone pass judgment on you? So yeah, these stories need to be told, and they need to be told all over the world, and as many times as we can tell them, and in front of as many people as we can get in front of, because I want you to help me make a difference. So yes, this is very important.
And what would you say to families who have children on the death row and they're afraid of speaking out? They're afraid of speaking out against what's happening to their children because they are not sure whether their children would be safe, whether this is better for their children or not. What would you say to those families?
We cannot be afraid that we're going to lose something for standing up for what's right. We cannot be afraid that they're going to kill me or kill my mom or kill my sister because I'm standing up for what's right. You stand up for what's right and be willing to suffer the consequences of it. That's the only way we're going to really make change. Because if I know that you are afraid that I'm going to do something to your family if you say something, then that's the threat I'm going to continue to keep over your head. But if I know that no matter what, no matter how many times I threaten you, that I can't stop you from pursuing justice, that I can't stop you from getting out there trying to make change, then that threat becomes hollow. That threat becomes hollow. And even if you do something to my family, then that's going to add to my story that I'm going to share with the rest of the world. I can't give up because you dug in. I have to get you to see that I am just as good as you. I am just as human as you. And that we are all here together to share this earth. And if you can't get me there, if I can't get you there, then I'm going to continue to try as I can to get you there, because we need to all be on that same page. That's the only way we can change this thing. Because if not, then you have those that are in power going to continue to use their power for the wrong reasons, because we're not making them understand how human we all are. We are all a human being. We all have the goodness in us, and we all have the ability to do something wrong. It's just the character of the man or woman. And so I say that if you really want to make a difference, make up your mind to make a difference. That's where it starts at. You know, you have to make your mind up that that's what you want to do. Because when you make your mind up that that's what you want to do, you're not going to let anything stop you. No threats, no nothing. You're going to do what you know is right. That's what I do every day.
If everything you went through happens to a family member of yours or someone who's very dear, do you think that you would stay quiet and be intimidated because the state might come after you as well? Or would you actually speak out?
I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that question, because I've gone through it all. There's nothing you can do to intimidate me. You can't scare me. There's no fear here. For I'm going to get involved. I'm going to let the whole world know what you've done to my family member. I owe that to my family member. I owe that to our society. I owe that to our broad community. Is to share what I know about what you did so that we can try to rectify this and make a difference. I cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sideline when I know something is wrong. I cannot, in good conscience, close my eyes knowing that I've left this world not making a difference, knowing that I could have been. What are you going to say about me? Nothing. I want you to have something to say about me when I leave this world. Here lies a great man. Here lies a man that stood up for what was right. You have to earn that on your marker. They don't just give it to you. And I'm earning that. And I would encourage everyone else to earn those great words on your marker before you lay down, before they take you away from here. You have that right. Earn it. Earn the respect of the community of law enforcement. Earn the respect of the community of the criminal justice system. Because if you do, then you could pry that door open a little bit more and make that difference. But if you're just going to sit there and let them do what they want and you're going to be quiet because you're afraid, then let me tell you something. Get ready, because they're coming for you next. Okay? They're coming for you next. So you might as well get involved. You might as well. What's to stop them from doing it to you if you don't stop it first? And you stop it by getting involved. Doing something gives you peace. Not doing something does not give you peace. I'm at peace because I know my life and my story in my life is making a difference. It's doing something. So I'm at peace. I've found peace by doing something, by getting involved, by making a difference, by being willing to sacrifice for the greater good. That gives you peace. And I'm at peace. And I hope any and everyone that is listening to me that has a story, that know of a story, get involved. Get out there. Let the world know. Because that's where your peace is going to come from.
And I know that you've written a book, Anthony. Would you like to tell our viewers about your book and where they can possibly find it?
My book, Infinite Hope, I wrote it. It came out last year. It talks about my life on death row, all that I went through, and while going through it, the hope that I kept. You know, I never gave up. And I tell anyone, don't give up. That's why I wrote the book, so that you can understand that no matter what you go through, you have the choice as to whether you want to give up or not. And if you know that you have that choice, then don't give up. Choose not to give up. I chose not to give up, and I live a good life today because of it. So you can make that same choice. Go get the book, Infinite Hope by Anthony Graves. It will change your life.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It was great having you with me here.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All right,
you,
have
sir.
a great one.
I really hope that this conversation today helps you to make a choice. Which side of history do you want to be on? Fortunately, the majority of the world understands that the stakes are very high. Innocent people can be executed, and one innocent is far too many. Thank you very much.